Conversations with Azu Ishiekwene.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Conversations with Azu, the podcast. And for the first time ever, we have a new face with us today, but I'll introduce her in a bit. I'd like to introduce the man who drops it like it's hot every Friday. I had to say that.
I don't know about dropping
Welcome,
it
Azu.
as it's hot, but it's good to be back.
This one is hot.
Wow.
Very hot.
We'll have to wait.
And of course,
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming as usual and dropping it like it's hot. And of course, we've got Raliat Yusuf. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for the first time ever. Who knows? She might just be a constant. Who knows? And this week is very, very hot. Had to take us back, to a piece that I wish I read 10 years ago. Just like I wish you wrote the book, Writing for Media, Monetizing 10 years ago. So can you be dropping it in a timely fashion?
Well, we'll try that, but there was a book that was written, and they want to know who Ribado.
Yes.
And I remember that I promised that I'll do the best I can to write such. Of course, I write in between. I write and do the life of writing, but book writing is an entirely different business.
No, when you write on money, please be writing it early,
Okay.
so that I can read it and make money.
Okay,
I should have had a 10 years head start to monetizing media. Now look at me.
Sounds good.
Please, you can still buy our book, azu.media. Go there and order a copy. It's very, 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 very important that you read it. Just in case you see anybody selling the book in traffic, it is me. I have to get my extra daily 2K
Your hustle
from there. Okay, so this week's article, Olatunji Dare, to repay is to owe more.
Yeah.
Particularly love it. I like it when you talk a lot about your mentors. So I picked a whole lot from this article. The first one I liked, the first thing that stood out for me was your choice of word. Literally plumber. You see, it is even still blowing my head. It's good to know that.
I'm a Motopark journalist.
So the first question would be, how was it the first time you encountered Olatunji Dare?
Okay, great question, and I think I shared a bit of that in the content. So here we were in that journalism class in 1985. It was, I believe, and it was our first class, Mass 101, and I think there were about 21 of us in class on that day. I can't remember what the exact number was, but and then he came and he just came, picked his chalk, because then we used to have what you call blackboards, even in university. So he just picked his chalk and then started writing on the board, my name is Dr. Olatunji Dare, and then all of that. And then he turned to the class and said to us, "So why are you here?" And some of us found that question. So, we are here to study mass communication, of course. Why are you asking us, Then he allowed us, we took turns answering the question one by one. And folks in the class on that day, I remember, gave all kinds of reasons why they, And at the end of it, he looked at us, and for quite a while, he just shook his head, and as if, I think these guys have lost their way. You are here to study journalism to be rich and famous and blah, blah, blah. He just shook his head and said, "You know what, folks? It's not too late. I can tell the faculty officer to help some of you do a change of course. But it does look like what you are hoping for is not what this business is about." And he seemed to mean it. And a number of us, if I still remember correctly, were in genuine shock. Like, what is this change of course? But that was how
it started.
Dr. Olatunji Dare's class started.
So, what would you say about your relationship over the years? First of all, have you sent him a copy of the book?
Yes, I have. He's in Peoria in Illinois in the US, so I ordered by Lulu to him. I think he should get it before his 80th birthday. I would have actually sent his copy to him, but he didn't get back to me on time with his mailing address when I was in the US. So when he finally came through, I sent it to him. I think about 10 days, 2 weeks ago. He should get it before. Hopefully, he gets it before.
So what happened after the encounter that very day?
Well, earlier that
some of your colleagues changed their...
No, of course, but you know what students do after class. So we started grouping and asking, I said, was he serious about that? Because he looked every bit serious about what he said. So was he serious? Is he joking or whatever? Is it true that what was the message really? But that was the beginning. As far as Dr. Dare's class was concerned, that was actually the beginning of a very exciting journey, for us. And we still remember. I mean, when I put this article in the class chat room, for example, 1988 class, mass comm class, the kind of feedback that people started, remembering all some of the things he used to say back in the day, and so forth and so on. So it was the beginning of a very memorable journey. But to answer your question directly, no, none of us changed their courses, at least not on account of the way the class started on that day.
That was in 1985.
That was in 85.
40 years ago.
That's correct.
So how would you rate journalism then, back then and today?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think it's evolving. There are people who like to look back at everything past as golden and glorious. And I think that everything present and now will be gone. Well, I don't exactly fall into that category. I think that over the years, journalism has benefited greatly from technology, from changes, from technological changes, especially above all else. And has also benefited from greater opportunities for people to learn more, to travel, and all of that. But there are some things that have not changed fundamentally. The canons of the profession remain essentially the same. Canon of fairness, of justice, of truth, pursuit of the truth, and commitment to balance, to objectivity. These are canons that will not change. It doesn't matter what the ecosystem today may be, and of course it's substantially different from what it was, but the canons of the profession, in my view, remain essentially the same.
Okay, so aside from everything that you wrote about him, when I say aside, apart from the script that you wrote, I would have really loved to see that script.
That was bleeding,
so that I could compare that Azu to this one now. The plumber.
Yeah, it's interesting that encounter, which I also mentioned in the article. I think I'd written what I thought was, great A piece. You know how you feel when you have done.
You should have kept that piece.
When you have done your best and you think, this one, I've killed it. I'm going to get an A. And so I boldly took that the paper to him, because I stayed back instead of going for the long vacation. I said, no, I need to kill this piece so that when I go on my vacation, I'll just go and enjoy myself. So I turned him. The man, he looked at, and there was a visitor in his office. He just looked at the first. I was about, I was turned, I submitted, I turned, and I was about to. He said, Azu, come. So I thought he was now going to praise me. And he said, what have you written? I said, it's my term paper, sir. I just submitted it. He said,
with all confidence.
Your term paper. What have you been reading? Oh, I said, I've been reading David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. I said, really? And then he burst into laughter. He said, my friend, it's not showing at all. This is a classic example of disco journalism. And the rest, as he says, is history.
So apart from all of that, now what has stood out for you about him for the last couple of years?
I mean, that's a great question, because this piece is really not about me. It's a tribute to the man who has contributed significantly to molding and shaping my profession and giving me direction and shining the light for me, and I'm sure for many others to follow. It's his integrity and his commitment, passionate commitment to the pursuit of truth. Dr. Dare is just one man. It's as straight as an arrow. That is something I take away a lot from. And I must also say that he's people think that, of course, I'm still an apprentice at this job, but you see his flair for the use of language. My goodness, that vintage is really rare, right? You read Professor Olatunji Dare, of course, and you just wonder, he seems to have the perfect description, that word that you needed to describe a situation, that you needed to describe somebody that you need. He seems to have it just exactly as you wanted it said. Well, he also writes with a lot of wit and humor, because he's a satirist. He's clearly not Nigeria's number one satirist, if not Africa's number one satirist, in my view. And you can say it's because I'm the one saying it, but I challenge anyone to read Dr. Olatunji Dare's speech. And it's not just, he's cut from the finest cloth profession. And I really honor him on his birthday, and I'm sure that many of my folks out there, not just only in my class, but right across the journalism space in Nigeria, in many parts of the world, where he has also had the honor, even in the US, where he has different parts of Africa, he has had the honor to serve. He has served with clear distinction, and we owe him a lot. We owe to him, a great deal of what we, some of us, have become today.
Okay. Do you have any more questions?
Yeah, not really a question, I say. But from the piece today, you could see that he's a professor now.
Yes,
Professor Dare is a very rare breed. He's unique in what he does.
He does,
and I believe we need more of him, because then in the US, there is just very painful, because I believe we even need
more.
A lot of us need to tap from this.
Yes, you are correct. You are correct, Riley. You see, although he's based in the US, but he is constantly in touch with us, and thank God again for him. I mean, he writes every Tuesday, as I'm sure you know, on the back page of Nation. Also has given lectures, and all of that. But he continues to engage in punditry, the finest tradition of punditry, or week in, week out. And to think that this man has done this, and it's 80 on the 17th of July.
Wow.
And with such clarity of thinking and quality of mind that just leaves me in awe.
Okay. Well, I wish you know that the way Professor Dare leaves you in awe, that's how you leave me in awe.
I don't know about that.
I don't know how to write, but I definitely will be talking about you 10, 20, 30 years from now. So just so you know. Yeah. Okay, and that's a wrap on this week's episode. Particularly love it. Like I said, I wish you wrote this 10 years ago. At least I would have had an idea what I was getting myself into. But then that's okay. Please go and buy our book. Very important. Extremely important, so that you can monetize your writing/media skills. We'll be here next week again for another banger.
Okay.
So from me is thank you, and see you next week. And from Raliat,
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
and the man that will drop another banger next week.
Thanks for having me. Banger free. This has been the banger free tonight. Thanks, folks. We'll see you next week.
Conversations with Azu Ishiekwene.